It's safe to say that we all got swept up in this viral sensation that was the Dubai chocolate bar. Influencers everywhere picked up this massive bar at like a Dubai airport, cracked it open, and there it was, a gooey, smooth green center with a little bit of a crunchy texture. Everything about it captivated us, or I don't know, maybe it was just me, but it was very satisfying to watch and imagine eating. And then people everywhere started recreating it. And on the surface, it looked really easy. I mean, all these quick 1-minute short videos made it seem like you just melt some chocolate, whip up some green filling, and boom, you're done. But let me tell you, while it is easy now that I know how, it took me a few tries and a while to get there. And I made some pretty decent bars. You know, some of them are great, but none of them are quite perfect, and that's okay. What I want to do in this video is to show you exactly what I learned. The easy parts, the hard parts, the frustrating parts, the I got chocolate everywhere parts. Let me show you how a homemade version looks of the Dubai chocolate bar. I want to be clear, this isn't some expose or takedown of the Dubai chocolate bar or the city. I don't want any angry customs agents chasing me down. I'm just showing you the ins and outs of how I made this at home and what to expect. Starting with part 1, the kataifi. The kataifi, the katifi, the kataifi, or even the kanafe, I use them interchangeably, is the shredded phyllo. After all, fixed dessert chocolatier in Dubai that created this called it the can't get kanafe of it, and I always love a good play on words. This ingredient is just one of the important ways this bar is so special. Kataifi was fairly easy to find at a local Indian spice shop living here in Los Angeles, so while I don't think it's at your standard Ralph's or Kroger's, just look for it at your closest ethnic store. The phyllo pastry ingredient is prominent in Indian, Persian, Greek, Turkish, and other Middle Eastern foods, so any one of those stores should carry it. After the 3 attempts, I believe it's best to make the kataifi first so it has time to cool completely. That's important. Warm kanafe can soften in the chocolate shell from underneath, and the crunch wasn't the same. I used about 100 to 150 grams or 2 cups of chopped and loose kataifi. But just measure with your heart because leftover toasted kataifi is a great topping for your morning yogurt. And I recently used some in a Dubai chocolate levain style cookie I made for Father's Day, which were a big hit. I cut it up with a knife and then broke it up with my hands just to make sure it was loose and stringy. Now let's toast it in the pan. Some videos or recipes will tell you about 1 to 3 tablespoons of butter, but with this much, trust me, get ready to use upwards of 6 tablespoons. The phyllo pastry absorbs a lot, and you really want to try and coat as much as you can, so be prepared to use more. Heat up a pan on medium and toss in the 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. Once melted, add the kataifi and start stirring and keep it moving. If you're making a lot, doing it in batches helps, and use more butter. This will take about 8 to 10 minutes on medium, but the real tell is the golden brown color. Keep stirring so it doesn't burn, and get ready to add another 3 tablespoons of butter midway because you really want to make sure it's properly toasted. Once you are done, put it in a plate or shallow bowl and let it cool down completely. Part 2, Pistachio Cream. Let's go to the more involved part of the Dubai chocolate bar, the green inside pistachio cream. I'll show you how to make your own, but oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this. First off, I took 2 cups of pistachios and boiled with a little bit of baking soda for 10 to 15 minutes. The baking soda helps the skin come off, and the boiling makes them soft to blend. Let me just get this out of the way. 2 things. 1, if the recipe says use pistachio butter, it's not the same as pistachio cream, and the chocolate bars use the cream. 2, if you can buy a jar of pistachio cream, do it. I cannot stress this enough. It is expensive, yes, but making it from scratch costs time, pistachios, which are also expensive, and potentially your sanity. That said, here's how I made the best homemade version. And yes, it is seriously the most delicious thing I have ever made, so buckle up and don't tell me I didn't warn you, because this is very involved. After boiling the pistachios, you can do one of 2 things or both. 1, add them to a salad spinner with water and spin it around to help separate the skin from the nut. The centrifugal force helps peel the loosened skins away, and spin that for about 20 to 30 seconds, then rinse and repeat if needed. And 2, just lay them out on a towel and then use the towel to separate the skins from the nut. Because you're going to want to remove as many skins as possible from the pistachios to get the cream to be a rich green color. It also tastes a little bit better with less skins. While the pistachios are drying on a towel, you can remove the skins with your bare hands, but I found that using latex gloves makes taking off the skins much easier because they don't stick to your palms and fingers. This was very time consuming and it took me about 15 to 20 minutes just to take the skins off, and most videos really gloss over this part. I won't subject you to a full 20 minutes worth of me peeling off the skins, but in the end, you should be left with a big bowl of really green pistachios. Now this part is totally optional, but I find it to be much better. You should toast the pistachios in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes at 300 to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure they do not burn, but the goal here is to warm them up to help extract the pistachio oil. Once they are warmed up, you can put the nuts into a blender and blitz it to a pulp. Literally, just let it run for 5 minutes. Some recipes will tell you to add neutral oil if needed, but if you toasted them in the oven, you really shouldn't need anything. If you stop here, you have something close to pistachio butter. A more powerful blender might turn this into a super smooth butter. But in my early testing or first bar, I will admit to adding coconut oil. It's not so much neutral, but I thought the melted coconut oil would be a nice addition. However, it is a saturated fat and it hardens when cooled down, so it's going to prevent it from being smooth and luscious when you eat it. Still good, but not creamy. Remember, we're making a pistachio cream. So here's part 2 of the pistachio cream. I have melted about 6 to 8 ounces or 200 grams of white chocolate, and the white chocolate should have cocoa butter in it. Your standard white chocolate chips really don't do a good job melting because of the stabilizers, so I got me some Lindt chocolate truffles. I let that melt on the double boiler, which for me was a metal bowl over a pot of simmering water, and then toss in about 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter and melt that all together. You can use a microwave to melt the chocolate by melting it 1 minute at a time, mixing it every 20 seconds so it doesn't burn, but that can take several minutes, and I find the double boiler much easier. Pour that into the blended pistachio butter, getting as much of it as you can from the bowl. Don't worry about getting it completely clean. I put it right back onto the stove. I'll use it later to melt a little more white chocolate for the colored designs on the top. So now I added about 1/3 of a cup of powdered sugar. This is a personal preference, but don't skip the sugar. It's meant to be a touch sweet. And then start up the blender again and mix it up. Once you start blending, you'll notice some of the oil starting to separate. The sugar sort of forces the oil out. I collected this oil for a few reasons. 1, to reduce the amount of fat in the pistachio cream, but more importantly, 2, I now have some sweet pistachio oil to use for other recipes and salads. And lastly, number 3, I can always add it back if I need to. So with the machine going, we added the heavy cream. You can use milk like some recipes suggest, but with all this work I'm putting in, I want to make the most luxurious Italian pistachio cream there is. So I encourage you to use cream. It is way better. And this is where I say you have to eyeball it, but it's at least 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. You want to add as much as you need, but the cream should turn a lightish forest green and should be viscous, yet still thick and creamy, like you see in the video. I opted to add a little more sugar after tasting it and even used some of that pistachio oil to loosen things up. Part 3, the chocolate. Okay, now we're on to the chocolate bar. So you have the chocolate mold ready. There are hard versions and soft ones. I used the soft one because I thought it would be easier to pop out when done. Plus this one was super cheap. We start by melting 1 to 2 ounces of white chocolate that has cocoa butter, just like before, into a double boiler, except we are only melting white chocolate, we are not adding butter. Then I placed it into 2 small bowls and added some natural food coloring, which I know is a liquid and can cause chocolate to seize, but don't worry too much, just move quickly getting them into the molds. You can use powders if you really want to get serious about it, but I use liquid green, yellow, and red since that's all I had. And you can see the reddish one got a little thicker than the green one. I spread one with a small knife and drizzled the other with a spoon. This, by the way, is totally optional, but it was helpful when I made 3 batches so I could tell the difference. Pop that into the freezer for 10 minutes to solidify. While that's in the freezer, let's melt more chocolate. Start by chopping up about 500 grams of chocolate. I'm using a mix of dark and milk, which I find gives it a really nice balance to the bar. Not too sweet, but not too bitter. These bars are really thick, so I recommend chopping it up as best possible, but don't sweat it too much. It just means that you'll need to be a little more patient when we melt it. If you're wondering if 500 grams of chocolate is too much or not enough, it's a bit of both. I found that many recipes call for 350 to 400 grams, but there is a lot of attrition with chocolate. Some of it dribbles out the bowl, some of it stays in the bowl, some of it ends up on your counter, some of it you lose a whole bunch, you don't realize where it went, and I'd rather have more than enough. Back to the double boiler. I'm adding about 60% of the total chopped chocolate into the bowl with the leftover white. Don't worry, once you start stirring, the white disappears. We're going to melt this chocolate, and once that is done, we will add the remaining 40% to temper that chocolate. This is the best way I have figured to temper the chocolate. In version 2 of the chocolate bar I made, I went so far as trying to measure the temperature to get it exact, which is about 88 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit for milk chocolate if you want to temper it and get that clean snap, but it was a fool's errand, and frankly, I'm not overly concerned about the super shiny exterior of the bars I was making since I'm not selling them commercially. My chocolate snapped and looked shiny enough with this method. The residual heat from the melted chocolate should be enough to melt the additional chocolate we're adding. Now, with the chocolate melted and cooled and the 10 minutes have passed by, take the mold out of the freezer. As you can see, I put down some wax paper because it's going to get a little messy. I'm not 100% sure the wax paper helped, but it made me feel better. My previous 2 attempts, there was chocolate everywhere. You don't want to pour too much into the mold at first, but you can, and just pour it back into the bowl. The soft mold that we're using doesn't make that easy, but it is doable. I then use a silicone brush to paint in some of the chocolate, making sure to get all 4 sides of the bar. Once that's done, pop that into the freezer for about 15 minutes. Part 4, the Pistachio Tahini Katifi mixture. While the main chocolate mold is freezing, we can take about 12 ounces or 350 to 400 grams of pistachio cream and add a little bit of tahini, maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons if you want that added flavor. Just a tip about tahini in general, you really want it to be room temperature, but if you take it right out of the fridge, try putting it in a bowl of warm water for a bit. It will make it much easier to stir and pour. As for the Katifi, measure with your heart, but you really want to add as much as you can to get that incredible texture and crunchiness, about 150 to 200 grams to start. Mix that all together, and now that the 15 minutes are up, we can get that chocolate mold out of the freezer. Start by placing a large scoop into each mold, about 150 to 200 grams, and start patting it down. You will be surprised by how much pistachio mixture it can fit, and keep adding it until you use it all up or they're all packed to the brim. I would even suggest using a knife to make sure the corners are pushed all the way. In my earlier versions, some chocolate got into the corners instead, and it made it unnecessarily chocolate heavy in those parts. I'm adding some extra Katifi on top, which is actually the bottom, for more texture and crunch, but that's up to you. Add that to the freezer for 10 to 15 minutes. Once that's done, pour a little bit of the leftover chocolate on top, and if you got an offset spatula, use that to spread it across the entire chocolate bar mold. Pay special attention to any holes or gaps and just add more chocolate. You may want to pick it up and bang the bottom and draw out any bubbles, but once that's done, put it back in the freezer for one more final freeze for about 10 to 15 minutes. Once that's properly chilled, I take them out fairly easily out of the mold, but sometimes the chocolate on the side doesn't stick, and maybe it's from an air bubble or not enough chocolate froze to the sides, so I have to use some of the extra chocolate to patch it up a bit. And yeah, I put those back in the freezer for about 10 minutes. But that's it. Easy, right? I honestly hope I was able to show you the ins and outs of the entire process, the joys and frustrations, and that this video was long enough to give you a real insight into this viral chocolate bar. But let's get to eating this and showing you the inside. All right, before I taste this, all in all, this took me about 128 to maybe 140 minutes. Mind you, I'm filming, so maybe it'll take you an hour, and with all the leftover, I popped it into a small mold I had and made a kanafe chocolate bar, which I'm a little excited to eat because I'm starting to really love kanafe. Okay, let's taste it. This was my first bar. As you can see, it's not ooey gooey. The pistachio, it was more of a pistachio butter, not a cream at that point, and that solidified in the fridge, and this has been out for a little bit. But pistachio butter, which was basically me blending up pistachios and adding a little coconut oil or neutral oil, which I thought was a mistake because there was all this natural oil. It's very good. It's very tough. The katifi is still a bit crunchy, which is good. And I've heard people complain that sometimes they make it, or they've eaten some chocolate bars where it's all soggy and a hot mess. So I can't stop eating it though, because pistachio is so good. You know what? It'd be a shame to see this not go to good use. It is a big chocolate bar though. All right, I'm gonna cut into the new bar. All right. Oh yeah. All right, that's a little creamier. It's fresher. Ooh. All right. Oh yeah. Oh. Okay. The katifi, I crammed in as much katifi as I could. And I even added some on the bottom. This is the top when you make it. This is so much more crunchier, so don't hold back on the katifi. And the pistachio cream. I have to say the best thing about this is my homemade Italian pistachio cream. And I do have all these extra bars that I can share with the neighbors. So if you made this at home, let me know how it went, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, I just need to be alone with this for a second. Thank you.